One moment he was in control. The next, he was the one sweating. Power shifts fast when you're not careful. The night air hung thick with humidity, the kind that made the streets of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, feel sticky even after sunset. The glow of streetlights reflected off the sleek black exterior of a 2023 Mercedes-Benz S-Class as it rolled to a stop at a red light. Inside, Angela Stokes drummed her fingers on the steering wheel, her mind occupied with thoughts of getting home to her husband after a long day. Then, the telltale flash of red and blue lights lit up her rearview mirror. She exhaled sharply. Here we go. She knew she hadn't run the light, hadn't been speeding, hadn't made any sudden moves, but that didn't seem to matter. She signaled, eased her car over to the curb, and watched as the police cruiser rolled up behind her. A moment later, Officer Ryan Carter stepped out. Tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of presence that carried both authority and arrogance. He adjusted his belt and sauntered toward the driver's side window. The way he walked, the slight smirk on his lips, Angela could tell this wasn't going to be a pleasant interaction. She lowered her window. "License and registration," Carter said, his voice flat, uninterested, like she was already guilty of something. Angela kept her tone neutral. "May I ask why I'm being stopped, officer?" Carter scoffed, shaking his head. "Don't play games with me, lady. I'll ask again. License and registration." Angela swallowed her irritation. This wasn't her first time dealing with someone like him. She reached into her glove compartment, moving carefully so there wouldn't be any misunderstandings, and handed him her documents. Carter barely glanced at them before looking her up and down. His eyes flickered over her tailored blazer, her pearl earrings, the wedding ring that sparkled under the streetlights. "Nice car," he said, inspecting the Mercedes emblem. "Yours?" Angela met his gaze, unblinking. "Yes." His smirk widened. "Must be nice, driving something like this. People don't usually—" He stopped himself, but the implication was clear. Angela felt her stomach tighten. She'd had enough of these encounters to know exactly where this was going. Carter leaned on her door, his posture intentionally imposing. "You live around here?" "Yes." "Where?" Angela tilted her head slightly, giving him a long, measured look. "That information is on my license, officer." Carter chuckled under his breath, flipping through her documents with exaggerated slowness. "You sure this ain't your boyfriend's car? Husband, maybe?" Angela's patience thinned. She refused to let this man bait her. "If you tell me the reason for the stop, I'd be happy to cooperate." Carter's smirk faded. He wasn't used to pushback, especially from someone who didn't immediately shrink under his authority. He tapped her license against his fingers. "Your brake light's out." Angela's eyebrows lifted. "No, it isn't." Carter's expression hardened. "Are you calling me a liar?" Angela held back a sigh. She knew this game. He wanted a reaction, a reason to escalate. "I'm saying I checked my lights before I left the house, so if it's out, it must have just happened." Carter let out a low chuckle. "Convenient." Angela kept her expression unreadable. "Would you like me to step out and check?" But Carter wasn't interested in logic. He was interested in power. His hand hovered over his belt, not in a way that suggested immediate danger, but enough to remind her what he had. The badge, the gun, the authority. Angela knew better than to push too hard. Not here, not like this. Carter stared at her a second longer. Then, as if deciding she wasn't worth the effort, he handed her license back. "I'll let you off with a warning." Angela didn't thank him. She didn't owe him that. She took her documents, rolled up her window, and watched in her mirror as Carter strolled back to his cruiser, still carrying that cocky, untouchable air. But he had no idea that the woman he had just tried to humiliate would be standing in front of him tomorrow morning, and his entire world was about to shift. Angela pulled back onto the road, gripping the steering wheel a little tighter than before. Her jaw was clenched, her heart still beating a little faster than she'd like. She knew better than to let encounters like this get under her skin. But something about that officer's smugness, the way he spoke to her like she didn't belong, stuck with her. She could have challenged him, could have asked for his badge number, could have demanded a supervisor, could have refused to play along with his little power trip. But for what? To be labeled difficult? To have him find an excuse to escalate things? Angela had spent years watching how these situations played out for people who looked like her. She knew how quickly things could spiral. She inhaled deeply, rolled her shoulders and forced herself to let it go. She had more important things to focus on. Her husband, Captain Daniel Stokes, had just been transferred to a new precinct. Tomorrow was his first day leading the department. It was a big deal, a huge step up in his career. And she wasn't about to let some overconfident patrol officer ruin the night before it even started. But Daniel noticed the tension the moment she walked in the door. She barely had a chance to set her purse down before he looked up from his laptop at the kitchen table. "What's wrong?" Angela shook her head, slipping off her heels. "Nothing. Long day." Daniel leaned back in his chair, studying her. She could see the question in his eyes. Do I push? Or do I let it go? He chose to let it go. For now. Across town, Officer Ryan Carter had already forgotten about the traffic stop. To him, it had been just another moment in a long shift filled with paperwork, pointless calls, and routine stops. He barely remembered the woman's face, only that she had an attitude he didn't appreciate. That alone had been enough to make him drag the stop out a little longer than necessary. It wasn't like she could do anything about it. That was the thing about the badge. It came with a certain insulation. By the time his shift ended, Carter was thinking about the cold beer waiting for him at home, not the woman in the Mercedes. He sure as hell wasn't expecting to see her again. Not in the way he was about to. The next morning, everything changed. Carter strolled into the precinct, coffee in one hand, his radio clipped to his vest. Another day, another shift. Same routine, same faces. Except there was a new one. A woman. Standing at the front of the briefing room beside the new captain. His new captain. And the second Carter saw her, his stomach dropped. Because it was her. Angela. The woman from last night. Standing there in a crisp blazer, her expression unreadable, while Captain Stokes addressed the room. "This is my wife, Angela. She's here today to get a feel for the department before she takes on her new community liaison role." Carter's entire body went stiff. Wife? His mind scrambled, trying to piece together the situation. He glanced at Angela, half expecting her to be staring right at him, calling him out in front of the entire squad. But she wasn't. She didn't even look at him. She just stood there, cool and composed, as if she hadn't been spoken down to by one of the officers in this very room just hours ago. And somehow, that made it worse. Because the waiting, the not knowing if she'd say something, that was worse than if she had just called him out on the spot. Carter swallowed hard, gripping his coffee cup a little too tightly. This was not going to be a good day. Carter's pulse pounded in his ears. He kept his eyes on the captain, but his thoughts were a chaotic mess. This couldn't be real. Of all the people, of all the stops, he had to pick her, the wife of his new captain. It felt like some kind of twisted joke. Captain Stokes continued addressing the room, his voice steady, authoritative. "I expect everyone to show Angela the same respect you'd show me. She'll be working closely with our department to bridge the gap between law enforcement and the community." Carter felt sweat gather at his temple. Respect. If the captain knew what happened last night, Carter was screwed. No, beyond screwed. His stomach clenched as he risked another glance at Angela. Still nothing. No smirk. No raised brow. not even a glance in his direction. She stood there, poised, unreadable, like she hadn't spent 10 minutes sitting in her car while he tried to make her feel small. And somehow, that was the worst part. If she had said something, called him out right here, right now, at least he'd know where he stood. But this silence, it was excruciating. Captain Stokes wrapped up his speech, dismissing the team to start their shifts. Carter stayed frozen in his seat as his colleagues stood, stretching, chatting, moving past him like it was any other morning. He needed to get out of there. He was just about to stand when a voice stopped him cold. "You, stay." Captain Stokes. Carter's throat went dry. He nodded stiffly and sank back into his chair as the rest of the room emptied out. When the last officer left, the captain turned, finally looking Carter in the eye. Angela stood beside him, her expression as unreadable as ever. "Tell me something, Officer Carter," Stokes said, arms crossed over his chest. "How long have you been on the force?" Carter cleared his throat. 8 years, sir." The captain nodded slowly. 8 years. So I'd assume, by now, you know how to conduct a routine traffic stop. Carter's stomach bottomed out. Angela still hadn't said a word. The silence stretched. "I do, sir," Carter finally managed. Stokes studied him, his expression unreadable. "Then tell me, do you always question whether a woman owns the car she's driving?" Carter's jaw tensed. "Sir, I—" Stokes held up a hand. The room went dead silent. "Before you say anything," Stokes said evenly, "I want you to understand something." He took a step closer, his voice calm but firm. "My wife is a grown woman. She doesn't need me to fight her battles. But I do expect my officers to treat every person they interact with, whether they're a CEO or someone struggling to make ends meet, with the same level of respect." Carter swallowed hard. Angela finally spoke, her voice smooth, controlled. Too controlled. "It's funny," she said, her eyes locking onto his. "How quickly power dynamics shift, isn't it, Officer Carter?" The words hit him like a punch to the gut. He felt his face heat, a mix of shame, regret, and something dangerously close to fear. Angela smiled. Not smug, not mocking, just knowing. And somehow, that made it worse. Captain Stokes didn't move, didn't blink, just let the silence stretch. Then finally, he spoke. "You're dismissed." Carter nodded stiffly, stood, and left the room as quickly as possible. But as he walked down the hall, his legs felt heavier with each step, because for the first time in his career, he wondered if he was the one who should be afraid. Carter walked straight to the locker room, his hands balled into fists. His breathing was shallow, his mind racing. How bad was this? Was he about to be written up, suspended, fired? He had dealt with disciplinary actions before, small things, nothing major. But this was different, because it wasn't just anybody he had harassed. It was her, and she held all the power now. He slammed his locker open, yanking out his gear with more force than necessary. His usual arrogance, the untouchable attitude he wore like a second skin, was gone. And it made him sick. "Carter!" a voice called from the doorway. He stiffened. It was Sanchez, one of the senior officers. Tough, sharp, and someone who didn't miss a damn thing. She stepped inside, crossing her arms. "You good?" Carter forced a nod. "Yeah. Just long morning." Sanchez raised a brow. "Uh-huh." She leaned against the lockers, studying him. Too quiet, too knowing. "So, she said slowly. What'd you do? Carter snapped his head up. What? She smirked. Come on, man. You look like you've seen a ghost. And Captain Stokes had that look. You know the one. The somebody screwed up big time look. Carter hesitated. Sanchez was sharp, but she wasn't the kind to throw her colleagues under the bus. Still, if word got around. He exhaled through his nose. I pulled her over last night. Sanchez blinked. Angela? He nodded stiffly. She let out a low whistle. Damn. Carter rubbed his jaw. Yeah. Sanchez tilted her head. And? What? You give her a hard time? He didn't answer, but the silence said everything. She sighed, shaking her head. Damn, Carter. You really picked the wrong one, huh? Carter didn't respond, because he already knew that. The rest of the shift was brutal, not because anyone treated him differently, not yet at least, but because he felt it. The shift in power, the uncertainty. Every time Angela walked through the precinct, whether she was talking to an officer, meeting with Stokes, or simply passing by, Carter felt like a man standing on thin ice. She never looked at him directly, never acknowledged him, and somehow that was worse than if she had called him out in front of everyone. Because she could. She could end his career if she wanted to, and she wouldn't even have to try. By the time his shift ended, Carter felt like he had aged 10 years. He was about to leave when a voice stopped him. Officer Carter. Angela. His spine went rigid. Slowly, he turned. She stood near the entrance, arms crossed, her expression calm but unreadable. For the first time that day, she was looking directly at him. I want to talk, she said. Carter's throat went dry. He hesitated, then nodded. Angela motioned toward a side hallway. Walk with me. Carter followed. The hallway was quiet, the low hum of conversation from the main precinct fading behind them. Carter walked beside Angela, his heartbeat thudding in his ears. He had no idea what she was going to say, but he knew, whatever it was, he needed to listen. Angela stopped near a row of office doors, turning to face him. Her arms were still crossed, but her expression wasn't angry. It was disappointed. And somehow that was worse. You know, she started, her voice even, when you pulled me over last night, I knew exactly how it was going to go. Carter swallowed. Angela let the words settle before continuing. You weren't interested in whether my brake light was out. She tilted her head slightly. Tell me, do you check registration that aggressively for everyone you pull over? Or was that just for me? Carter clenched his jaw. He wanted to defend himself, to explain, to say something. But what could he possibly say? She wasn't wrong. Angela sighed. Do you know how exhausting it is, having to constantly prove that you belong, that you're allowed to exist in certain spaces without suspicion? I've worked my whole life to make sure I never give anyone a reason to question me. But it doesn't matter, does it? Carter looked down. Angela studied him for a moment before shaking her head. The funny thing is, I don't even care about what you did to me. His eyes snapped up. Angela's lips pressed into a thin line. I'm not the first person you've treated that way, am I? Carter opened his mouth, then closed it. She already knew the answer. She took a small step closer. How many times have you pulled someone over, sized them up, and decided they didn't belong? How many times have you let your personal biases dictate how you treat people? Carter felt his hands tighten into fists at his sides. Not in anger, in shame. Because the truth? He had never had to think about it before. Angela studied his face, waiting for an answer. He exhaled. Too many times. It was barely above a whisper, but Angela heard it. She nodded, her expression softening just a little. Then change. Carter blinked. Angela glanced past him toward the precinct. You have power, Officer Carter, and whether you realize it or not, the way you use it affects people more than you'll ever know. Her gaze flickered back to him. I don't want an apology. I don't need one. What I need is for you to start seeing the people you pull over as human beings. Not statistics, not threats, not problems. Carter let the words settle. For the first time, he really, truly understood. Angela held his gaze for a long moment, then turned to leave. But before she walked away, she said one last thing. The real test of character isn't what you do when people are watching. She paused, glancing at him over her shoulder. It's what you do when they're not. And with that, she walked away. Carter stood there, rooted in place. For the first time in years, he wasn't sure who he was anymore. But maybe, just maybe, that was a good thing. How we treat people when we think there are no consequences says everything about our character. Bias isn't always loud. Sometimes it's in the small moments, the assumptions, the tone, the hesitation before deciding whether someone belongs. But those moments add up. And they matter. It's not about calling people out. It's about calling them in. Real change starts when we're willing to look at ourselves and do better. If this story resonated with you, share it. Keep the conversation going, because the more we talk about it, the more we can change it.